Cyberpunk 2077. From a disastrous launch to an absolutely amazing comeback, to a great DLC, and now probably being taken over by Blackguard and Vanguard and waving 15 rainbow flags around every single day and getting an award for inclusivity, diversity, and all that DUI woke garbage nonsense. It's gonna be wild.
Cyberpunk 2077 shocked the gaming world with its first teaser trailer, which had impressive visuals and an addicting soundtrack. The song Bullets by Archive completely captured the essence of the Cyberpunk universe and echoed themes of personal responsibility, which is fitting considering Cyberpunk's rough journey. From the multitude of delays to the disastrous launch, the devs at CD Projekt Red faced a very difficult path with Cyberpunk, but just like the game's central theme, CDPR had to take responsibility for their actions and attempt to navigate the backlash.
Typically developers don't take any responsibility. In fact, developers are very well known to not take any responsibility for any of their bad actions. Same in Hollywood. They're typically just gonna blame you for not liking slop. Sad.
Song became the unofficial theme for Cyberpunk, which emphasized the importance of personal choices in a world where actions have profound consequences. Cyberpunk's theme of taking responsibility for your own life is identical to the developer's experiences, which is why the trailer is so fitting and still lives rent-free in my brain over 10 years later. Surely
Want to know a secret? I wasn't actually that sold with the Cyberpunk 2077 trailer. I thought it's a little bit too artsy, too generic. Not gonna lie, I did.
CDPR can recover from one of the worst launches in history, right?
Now I knew it's gonna be something to look forward and whatnot, but the trailer did not sell me that hard.
The Xbox Game Showcase during E3 2018, the moment when the hype for Cyberpunk 2077 kicked off. Just as Phil Spencer was wrapping up the showcase, the power suddenly went out and was followed up by a hack on the screen. During the hack, the teaser trailer song started playing, and it was at this point I was in full freakout mode. We were about to witness our first
Cyberpunk! Mom, get the camera! Yeah, that was probably not manly at all.
Ever look at Cyberpunk 2077. The trailer revealed the main protagonist and our first ever.
You know what lives in my head rent-free? This right here, but the Russian version of it. Where you see all the crazy stuff that's happening around the world, particularly most of it is Russia, like all of that stuff. That thing does definitely live rent-free in my head.
Trailer revealed the main protagonist and our first ever look in Night City. I remember my reaction being completely mind blown about how massive and detailed the city.
And if you haven't seen that video, you must watch it. It is so absolutely fantastic. Cyberpunk 2077 trailer, Russia real life or something like that. I think you're probably gonna find it. It is superb. Absolutely superb.
Looked. And it seemed like CDPR was about to release yet another critical success only a few years after The Witcher 3 The Wild Hunt. But this is where the first controversy struck with Cyberpunk. It was reported by several news outlets after the E3 showcase that Cyberpunk would be a first-person perspective game, which honestly that surprised a lot of CDPR faithfuls. It was hard.
Yeah, I remember this. That's a lot of people were like, "Oh my god, it's third person, ruined." Oh come on, the first person doesn't mean it's gonna be bad. What the hell? Yeah, there's a reason The Witcher is in third person, because you cast spells. When you're casting spells, typically you kind of need to be in third person, otherwise you're gonna fail because it looks super janky from the first person perspective most of the time.
To imagine that the devs who made the Witcher series would be making their next game as a first-person experience rather than third-person. It just seemed so out of character for them. Now, this should have probably been our first red flag for the game, but most accepted it despite some initial pushback. Now, looking back at Cyberpunk 2077, I personally think the first-person perspective was a good idea, but there are times where I do imagine an alternative reality where Cyberpunk was third-person and it launched well, but unfortunately our dreams are memes and not of reality. Jump to a couple months later, we got the gameplay reveal of Cyberpunk 2077 in the form of a 48-minute walkthrough, which honestly, looking back at that gameplay, it had a nice aesthetic to it, like the minimal UI.
It did. But it was all lies, as we all know.
The HUD was all super clean. This reveal was incredibly effective. The hype and optimism were reaching levels that far exceeded anything gaming had seen in a long time. With no release date in sight, the months went by with very few updates until the Xbox showcase in 2019, which is the event where we got the cinematic reveal trailer that set up the story, as well as one of the most breathtaking twists of the century. At the end, when V was flatlined by Dex, he got rebooted and the iconic line, "Wake the F up, Samurai," was delivered by none other than Keanu Reeves, who he eventually...
Okay, Keanu Reeves was definitely one of the highlights of Cyberpunk even existing, okay? And it's like, okay, that is when I was like, oh, I love you! I want your babies! And no regrets up to this day. No regrets.
Find out is Johnny Silverhand. After the trailer finished playing, Keanu walked on stage to talk more about Cyberpunk 2077, and this is where the "you're breathtaking" meme was created.
He almost fell dead, by the way.
This event also gave us the first release date for Cyberpunk, which was set for April of 2020. Cut to 2 months later, CDPR gave us a deep dive of the game that they were planning on delivering to us in 8 months, or so we thought. In this video,
well, turns out it was a couple of years after that, but it is what it is.
Here we got our first official look at the character creation screen. We got to see the Pacifica District, and they showed off the Voodoo Boys gang, which honestly, looking back at this video, it made it look like the gangs of Cyberpunk play an actual role in the game. However, that just wasn't the case at all. Now, this deep dive video also included probably one of the most poorly aged quotes in existence, or it was an entirely intentional line by the developers, who I'm sure internally knew things weren't going well at all. When talking about Pacifica,
yeah, most likely the developers suspected that maybe that game is a little bit not up to snuff. Maybe.
Narrator said this, and I quote, "When uncertainty struck the global economy, investors pulled their funding, leaving the most establishments unfinished. It's one of those places where expectations and reality collide, resulting in a heap of disappointment." And boy, was that line spot on. Like, guys, this had to be foreshadowing by the devs. I refuse to believe it wasn't. Cut to January 2020. This is where the hype and optimism started to turn to skepticism when the game was delayed for the first time, where the game was moved from the April release date to the new launch date of September 17th, 2020. CDPR said in the announcement that the game was at a stage where it was complete and playable, but due to the size and scope, they needed more time to polish, or so we thought. In June 2020, CDPR announced another delay, which pushed the release date back again, this time to November 19th, 2020. This is when CDPR started to get quite a bit of pushback, but rather than the complaints of another delay, they were shrouded in controversy due to the studio undergoing a manual crunch. As reported by Jason Schreier, he stated this, and I quote, "Last year, the bosses of CDPR approached Jason for an interview. They wanted to announce that they would be avoiding mandatory crunch. This week, they sent out an email to staff announcing a studio-wide mandatory crunch. To which Adam Badowski, the studio head, responded with this, and I quote, "These last 6 weeks are our final sprint on a project that we've all spent much of our lives on. The majority of the team understands the push, especially in light of the fact that we've just sent the game to CERT, and every day brings us visibly closer to shipping. Everyone is well compensated for the extra hour they put into the game, and like recent years, 10% of annual profit our company generates in 2020 will be split directly amongst the team." Now, surely this was the final stretch until the game's release date, right? In early October, it was announced that Cyberpunk 2077 had officially gone gold. It officially passed the certification process for consoles, the PlayStation and the Xbox, which also started the printing process. I mean, guys, Cyberpunk went gold. Like, there's no way that it's gonna get delayed again, right? Like, come on, guys.
Nah, but then they pushed it out for the holiday release, and yeah, some people got coal in their socks. That's how it is.
There's no way, right?
Or stalking, I'm not sure.
Right? Okay, maybe just one more delay. On October 27th, just a few weeks left until the launch, CDPR announced yet another delay. This time it was due to extra improvements that were supposedly being made for the Day Zero patch. So despite the game passing certifications from Sony and Microsoft, another delay to December 10th, 2020 was necessary. Would this be the last and final delay, or would the rug get pulled again? Well, it was confirmed by the CDPR Twitter account that the December 10th release date would become the official release date of the game. Unfortunately for CDPR, this would be the start of one of the most disastrous video game launches ever. On December 7th, just a few...
Dude, yeah, the Cyberpunk launch is legendary. The bugs, the stuff. Some people got bugs where they shoot the flying car thing at the start, and it completely breaks their game because they can't get past its course. It's hilarious.
Few days before Cyberpunk 2077's launch day, industry reviews started to roll out, which
but arguably still not as bad of a launch as Fallout 76, which is still a complete trash game no matter what.
Weren't nearly as positive as many were expecting, especially after how many delays we had to deal with. Many of the reviews stated similar experiences, that optimization was a major problem and the game was riddled with bugs. Now, the copium that I was using was the fact that many of the reviewers weren't playing on the Day Zero patch. Like, guys, don't sweat it, the Day Zero patch is gonna fix everything. These guys made The Witcher 3, one of the best and most optimized.
This is why you never trust gaming companies, okay? I have not been a fan of a single gaming company for a very long time. I'm a fan of franchises, but I'm not a fan of the companies that make it. I love the Fallout series, for example, but if anyone tells me that Bethesda is making the new Fallout, I'm like, oh, it's gonna be shit. Wow, another piece of slop to chew on. Wow. Yeah, no, I'm excited about anyone else making it, but that's fine, you know? Assassin's Creed, technically not even a bad franchise, but Ubisoft is a complete shit-tier company. It is what it is. And stuff like that.
Optimized open world RPGs ever. Well, December 10th rolled around and our worst fears became reality. Cyberpunk 2077 clearly was not in the state that we were all hoping it would be in. The only individuals that had some
Bro, it definitely was in a certain state, okay?
somewhat of a good experience with the launch of the game were on PC, and even then, the game was riddled with crashes and graphical glitches. And just overall, it didn't meet the expectations that we were used to from CDPR, because clearly things internally were not going well. Looking back at it, we were so spoiled with The Witcher 3. CDPR cooked with that game, and I'm glad they did. But boy, oh boy, was that a shock back to reality. The delays should have told us everything we needed to know, but due to the hype and blind trust we had in CDPR, we all bought the game and attempted to play it. I was one of the lucky people with a monster PC that basically forced the game to run. But don't get me started on the console situation. It made my experiences on PC.
Even if you had a monster PC, you were still not safe from the bugs. T-posing, flying through the air, stuff falling through the ground. The bugs were still plentiful and many. The compilations of the bugs you got for this game was wild. Again, less than 76. 76 was truly the most buggiest experience I think I have ever played. Game launches, and you could literally not even play on average 1 minute without encountering a bug that completely took you out of the immersion, that completely made the game feel bad or of the sorts. Cyberpunk, a lot of problems, but at least it wasn't that bad. But the T-postings were, yeah, okay.
Look like child's play. It was so bad that the team had to bring back the yellow background black text template to address their community. In the statement, they apologized for not showing us the game on Xbox One and PS4. They also confirmed that updates were on the way to fix bugs, crashes, and general improvements.
To be fair, considering how much graphical fidelity Cyberpunk 2077 wanted to produce, it's honestly a little bit your fault for thinking, oh yeah, consoles are gonna run this well. Yeah, consoles are gonna be a-okay. I wanna play this. No, that's dumb.
And finally, they confirmed that anyone who wasn't pleased with the game can opt for a digital refund as well as physical refunds. The game was also removed from the PlayStation Store, which honestly is pretty wild to think about. I still question to this day how Cyberpunk ever passed these certs from Microsoft and Sony. I hope the Cyberpunk situation kind of forced MS and Sony to kind of fix their internal processes, because there is no way that Cyberpunk ever should have passed any certification at all. But that's an entirely different rabbit hole to go.
They wanted they could not miss the Christmas release. That's all there is to it. They wanted that money.
Go down. A month later in January, CDPR released a video statement that shared the studio's perspectives on what happened and reaffirmed their commitment to quality. The release of this game burned a lot of people. Despite the narrative and gameplay being great, the launch date of this game was inexcusable, but despite all odds, the team provided a solid roadmap. Throughout
I mean, that roadmap was not that solid, I ain't gonna lie, boys. Furthermore, the bigger problem was here and how we actually are ending up in present day, completely woke batshit crazy CDPR, and the next Witcher being potentially woke trash, is, well, CDPR got sued on well, probably more than 3 lawsuits, but 3 were actually super bad. One was clearly lying to the investors. 2, class action lawsuit for anyone who bought the game. And there was some kind of, I don't remember what was 3, but again, there were 3 big lawsuits that almost likely won against CDPR or they settled. Because there was no way they're handling that stuff.
2021, Cyberpunk received multiple hotfixes, which were mainly general stability improvements, fixed some bugs and major crashing issues. The console version still struggled quite a bit even after the hotfixes. The first update for the game dropped in January via the 1.1 update, which primarily focused on stability improvements and bug fixes, which laid the groundwork for future updates. It fixed a ton of crashes.
Also, this was not actually good. He's not mentioning the bad parts. But the first fixes did roll out, but there was a thing that they obviously omitted from the first patch notes, and it was the fact that they toned down the graphics, they toned down the density of the world, and a lot of other things to make it even, run almost normal for people.
Crashing issues, including memory usage improvements. There were also console-specific optimizations, and it had some open world and quest-related fixes, but nothing too crazy. Jump to February 2021, CDPR unfortunately experienced a cyber attack, which delayed the release of the 1.2 patch, but luckily it dropped at the end of March, and it was a beefy patch. The notes alone were over 8,000 words long. Needless to say, the CDPR optimization we knew and loved with The Witcher 3 was starting to happen with Cyberpunk, but luckily the team was just getting started. 3 months later, in June, Cyberpunk 2077 was added back to the PlayStation Store, which they recommended only playing on the PS4 and the PS5 versions of the game, and not the base PS4 version. Later in August, we got another major update via the 1.3 patch that added our first bit of free DLC and a plethora of changes, optimizations, and further improvements. In February of 2022, CDPR was still cooking and revealed the major 1.5 update that included the next-gen update as well. This is when the tides officially shifted for this game. This update brought various improvements to combat AI, new combat abilities. There was also the burnout mode, which brought
After the minor bug fixes and whatnot, they actually did start to improve things drastically, and that's where Cyberpunk truly actually sprung back to life. And by the way, some people misunderstand. Cyberpunk 2077 is not exactly what I would call woke by any definition. Sure, you can find woke aspects if you look really hard at everything, but at the same time, no, Cyberpunk is not woke. But what's gonna happen in the future of CDPR, that looks really bad. They are making a prequel to Cyberpunk 2077 also, and it's not looking good.
Drifting and other driving mechanics. There's new items added, clothing, weapons, scopes, and new apartments. It also rebalanced the game's economy with increased rewards from jobs. They rebalanced the quick hacks, improved the game's visuals, added toggle walking on PC, and so much more. My replay of Cyberpunk 2077 on the 1.5 update was a surreal experience. This update changed my outlook on Cyberpunk as a game. The 1.6 update continued on the path toward excellence with the Edge Runners update, and they officially teased the Phantom Liberty expansion. The 1.6 update brought various gameplay fixes, free DLC, and content inspired by Cyberpunk Edge Runners, the anime, which then went on to win.
Again, every time Edge Runners gets mentioned, if you haven't seen it, you should watch it. It's great.
An anime of the year. Honestly, if you
it's great. You know what's the funniest part about Edge Runners? It's what men think about it at the end and what women think. Men are like, holy shit, yeah, that is sad. Women are like, best love story ever!
If you haven't seen Edge Runners, I strongly recommend it. The impact of this anime was a culture shift for Cyberpunk, a game memed out of existence due.
Yeah, it literally got a huge surplus in player count because of it. It was crazy.
How awful it launched, has a newfound respect because of the excellent storytelling from the anime. People went and bought Cyberpunk 2077 in droves. It got to the point where Cyberpunk 2077 had 1 million plus daily active players following the Netflix anime and the Edge Runners update. The incredible work that CDPR did over the last 2 years finally got the appreciation that it deserved. Throughout the rest of 2022 and the start of 23, they released a DLSS 3 update update and brought a new ray tracing overdrive mode in April, which was a bonkers visual upgrade that I don't even know how my PC.
Bro, I absolutely hate the ray tracing upgrade or whatever this shit is. People love it and I hate it. Look at this. See that? That's reflection. Why it doesn't work like that? Unless it's super still, there's nothing happening. Water doesn't work like this. In every single puddle you see a reflection. It pisses me off so much, honestly. I absolutely hate that part of the update.
Was able to run. At this point, CD Projekt Red probably could have called it quits and moved on from this game, but they said, nah, hold up, I got one more in me. And that was in the form of the Cyberpunk 2.0 update. This update was a total overhaul to the game.
Yeah.
Honestly, CDPR probably would have had an easier time writing the patch notes for the 2.0 update by mentioning the things that they didn't change. This update was absolutely massive. It was game changing. However, the main highlights for this free update were things like the combat AI enhancement, a total overhaul to net running, vehicle combat, a new police system similar to GTA with wanted levels, inevitably ending and getting completely wrecked by max tac. This update also included a complete perk tree overhaul and just an absurd amount of additional changes. Now, along with the 2.0 update, the Phantom Liberty expansion for Cyberpunk 2077 released, which was the first and only
Yeah, and everyone liked that
expansion for the game, and it starred none other than Idris Elba and was set in a new district called Dogtown, where you were tasked with saving the president of the new United States. This expansion was
everyone hails Idris Elba. I'm not gonna lie, yeah, good job, but it's like, oh, it's Idris Elba expansion. The expansion was good on its own, a spy-esque thriller. Unexpected, but really good.
Phenomenal. It brought a new relic skill tree that unlocked unique abilities, and in terms of quality, it stands amongst the best expansions ever made. Yes, I'm talking about The Witcher 3 Blood and Wine and the new Shadow of the Erdtree expansion. This update and expansion marked the conclusion of Cyberpunk 2077's redemption arc, and man, did they go out with a bang. As much as I would love for CDPR to keep building on this game, I am fully satisfied with the state of the game. After countless free updates, DLC, and now the Phantom Liberty expansion, the overall experience of Cyberpunk 2077, like the whole package, is one of the best games ever created. In December 2023, Cyberpunk 2077 went on to win a Game of the Year award for Best Ongoing Game, which I think is well deserved. As of recording this video, there are 0 developers from CDPR working on Cyberpunk 2077, which almost feels bittersweet given the long journey to redemption, but the conclusion of this saga gives me hope for the future. It was announced in February.
I have no hope for the future. Again, if CDPR Red does not absolutely crash and burn with their next game, I am gonna be surprised. I am gonna be surprised. No, literally, they won a DUI award. They won a DUI award! That is not good.
Of 2024 that the follow-up to Cyberpunk 2077, codenamed Project Orion, is in development, but this time the game's development will be led by the team at CDPR Boston. The studio vets involved in Cyberpunk 2077 and Phantom Liberty are joining them in Boston, as well as
yeah, and a bunch of DUI hires are also going to be there. It's going to be great. Again, there is no world in my mind where after CDPR Red almost destroyed themselves, they did not get approached by either Vanguard or BlackRock, JP Morgan, or someone else like that, who literally want this to be. By the way, every day, every single day, we get more confirmation about that people wanna force these things on us. What was the newest one? It happened like a week or two ago. I haven't even talked about it, but it was like, oh yeah, there is a Illuminati style of cabal that's actually, getting together and trying to push woke agendas on people. Yeah, I mean, who wouldn't expect that now?
a ton of
and it's literally confirmed
well-known AAA developers like Dan Hernberg, previously at Blizzard and Amazon Games, Brent Bernard from Ubisoft Massive, and a ton of other known devs.
Oh yeah, from Ubisoft. That inspired so much hope in me. Wow, crazy. Where's my self-deletion equipment?
In a recent episode of the Answered podcast, Dan Hernberg had this to say: I think Cyberpunk is obviously a uniquely American story. It's got a lot of like punk energy and was written by an American, so it just seems right to do it in America. He said, in America, everything is just slightly different. It doesn't break immersion, but it's that little things where you're like, well, maybe this wasn't by the people who live here or who fully understand American culture. I also think the studio being in America allows us to have those cultural touch points. It then confirmed that
Yeah, cultural touch points, because you know what I need in my game? Someone to be eating blood sausage so I feel culturally pleased, so I feel included and inclusive. No, I don't want that at all. I want a good story. I want a good game. I literally don't want any of cultural inclusivity in my games. I don't want any feminism. I don't want anything in my games.
Project Orion isn't entirely being made in America. CDPR's Vancouver studio is also pitching in on the sequel, and the Canadian studio is working on some really cool stuff for the upcoming game, which is
Canadian studio, it just gets worse.
pretty exciting. With Project Orion being in the early stages of development utilizing the Unreal Engine 5, I hope the team at CDPR Boston and Vancouver understand the assignment.
Dude, I hope so hard that they do, but at the same time, my hopes for this are extremely low. My hopes for this are sadly extremely low. I think it's gonna be a mess. I think it's just gonna be Skull and Bones 2.0, Redfall 2.0, another Bethesda Fallout swap tier type of thing, Starfield. I think it's gonna be really bad. Maybe if we're lucky, it's like Diablo 4 tier or some slop like that. But I'm just not seeing it. Anyway, that was Vis Nemo. Have a good day. Bye bye.